Oof. All right. Why am I making this video? I want to make a video where I make sure that everyone on the dev team for this game, the 6 main makers, the anime club, I want to make sure that they all get adequate credit for their work. This is a video I've been meaning to make for a long time. I made this video a while back, but I was unhappy with it. And I'm gonna try a different approach this time. This video will contain a lot of spoilers. It's impossible to talk about this without revealing some parts of the game. I'm gonna kinda try to keep some things vague. There are some things that I have to show. Yeah, I would really recommend not watching this video if you want to avoid spoilers. And even if you think you don't really care about spoilers, or you're like one of those people that get FOMO when the rest of the community is progressing and they feel like they're not, they get impatient because they don't see stuff soon enough, just take a deep breath, relax, play the game at your own pace. Discovery is like a huge part of enjoying this game and like any other game. For most people, some people don't give a shit, but I think it's a tiny minority. So yeah, do not watch this video unless you want to get spoiled. And I wish I didn't have to make this video, but it feels almost necessary at this point. Okay, let's have a look. All right, let's quickly skip past that. Let's make a new save here. Let's go past this and this and this. So this game, this is very impromptu, improvised stuff, by the way. That's why I might pause a couple times to just think about how I want to structure this video. But let's start by talking about the main game. So you have these 100 floors, all of which I designed. I'm gonna lower the music a little bit. So the game development started with me just going through the whole game and remaking it. Well, it somewhat started with that. That's like the actual work. That's when new content was made. Before that, Geezer and Zero were working on porting this game over to Studio. But yeah, so all the platforming that you see in this game that is not a guest stage is made by me, with a tiny few exceptions in like the final segment. Maybe comes across as a bit of an understatement. The final part of the game. So in that part there are a couple saves that are made by different people. There are 2 saves that are made by V there. One save that's made by Chatron, one that's made by Kady, one that's made by Patrick, one that's made by Wolfie, and a little mini area, I guess. There are a few saves that are made by Skull. And I think that's everyone, but if I miss someone, well, fuck me. But other than that, like throughout the main game, so would it be the first 100 floors or like the stuff that comes a while after that, then the platforming, like level design, if you will, is sort of my area of the game. One of my areas, I should say. But in terms of like, so that's like kind of a big part of the game, like the player experience. But in terms of development time and like what goes into making a game like this, like designing the platforming is really a very, very small part of it. And it's kind of the part that I'm capable of, because I don't really know, or I've never really cared to learn GameMaker or any coding language. So like basically everything else will be at least implemented by someone else. And I use the word implemented there because I still had very much a creative hand in almost everything in this game, somewhat excluding guest contributions, although I had like a little bit of a hand in some of them, obviously, because they asked for feedback and stuff, they asked for directions. But yeah, so I was definitely like the creative overseer of this project. The structure of the game as a whole, the way it progresses, was definitely mainly my doing, I would say. But I'm incredibly fortunate to have people help me realize that vision, because I had a lot of those ideas that would end up becoming this game very early on when I started working on this in like the start of 2021. And like I don't think I realized like what the fuck I was getting into, and I got incredibly lucky, and yeah, I'm just fortunate, and I'm very grateful that there were people that were able to help me realize that vision that I had. Okay, so that being said, let's get into some stuff. So I'm gonna start by actually doing this. So I want to give you a better idea of why a game like this takes fucking ages. Okay, well I got fucked. So the reason I'm going here is because I think this room is a very good instructive showcase of how complex this game is. And when I say complex, I mean very specifically sort of the definition of complexity, which is that it's made up of a lot of parts that are interconnected and working together. And like compared to any of my other games, and like I'm not gonna compare this too much to other fan games because I don't know what the fuck is happening under the hood. But I just know from my own experience that this game is like multifold more complex than any other game that I've been involved in. So this is a place where you go as you collect secrets, items throughout the game. And if you look at just this tiny segment here, the amount of like unique assets in just this little room, it's just like you have this, or just I guess just like what you can see here. So you have this background thing here, you have the cross down here. If you grab the cross, you got a unique effect. It creates a unique warp. When you enter this room, when you leave it, there's a unique warp effect. When you enter it, there's a unique warp effect. We have a hand-drawn drawing here, which you gradually fill out as you collect the items, which was made by the dev team minus Nader, because he wasn't present, but we drew it collectively, the rest of us. This thing is obviously unique and blah blah blah, so on. So that's like one aspect of this game, is that it is composed of so many original assets, and whether they be, well, I mean mainly art assets, really, like visual components, and then some sound components that are original. Lots and lots of cutscenes and little effects. When you enter warps, just cutscenes between areas. Effects like when shit happens. And sorry, my dog is, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. When it comes to that sort of stuff, effects and shit, V did, I don't know, I'm not gonna give a percentage, but she did most of it easily. And she put tons of time into it. So she joined the project. She helped me make this meadow area that's somewhere in the game in the summer of 2022. And after that, she was kind of intrigued by the game and she wanted to help work on it. And then she was like my main collaborator for since then. And her and I did at least 2 sessions per week. So from the middle of 2022, basically. I mean, I'm kind of not exactly, but sort of all the way to the end of development. And like those sessions, you know, if you say like the average session was like 4 hours, then if you do 4 hours twice per week over the course of 2 years, that's 800 hours of work. And that's probably lowballing how much time she's spent working on this. So yeah, V, one of the biggest contributors, or you know, one of the main devs for the game. And I would say definitely her main role was visual stuff and sound stuff. Jesus fucking Christ. But she's also had her hands in a lot of other things creatively. She has coded a lot of system stuff, like how the pause and this screen works. I'm not gonna remember everything, but like the save effects, fucking like all the fundamentals, like save, death, game over screen, all that stuff is V. Fucking, I'm sorry if for all the shit that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. But I think the fact that she spent like 1,000 hours on this game, pretty much. Oh my god, sorry. It's pretty, you know, telling for just how involved she was and how much of her fingerprint is all over the game. Like the game would just not look or feel the same without her. I'm gonna take a fucking quick break and tell my dog to be a little more quiet, and then I'm gonna be right back. Okay, I hope audio and shit is good. Alright, let me go back in here. So now I want to talk a little bit about, oops, I did not mean to grab that. Nader's contribution, and that's also pretty helpful to be in here to show that off. So I designed these screens. For each screen you have an item, and that item has to unlock a certain piece of the drawing, and then it has to display the correct tile here, indicating where you found the secret that led to this room. And that's not too complicated, but it's probably a lot of work piecing all that together, because there are a lot of these. But then you also have, and I wonder if I should enter another area to show this off. Actually, what I want to do is this. This item here is the blue feather. And you can use this to warp around between areas. And let's just go here. And in each area you can leave from the first save. Unless you have the blue feather, then you leave by pressing maybe Control R. Wait, no, Control R puts me back at the start. Oh, right, you're holding backspace. Sorry. And it might seem like I'm building up towards making a grand point here. But really the point I'm making is the accumulation of all these tiny things, which is that each area has all these intersecting systems. So whenever you leave from this area, you're gonna end up in the right position. And then you can go to any stage. And if I go to this stage, for example, and I turn on God mode, and I grab the goblin, and I leave this stage, I am no longer the goblin. It's fucking profound. Sorry. What the fuck is this guy waffling about? Alright, so basically, let me try to sum this shit up. So there are so many systems. The blue feather is actually really, really complex. And I feel like I'm not doing it justice, and I don't know if I can do it justice. And the blue feather is a fucking tiny little item that a very, very, very small percentage of player has found. And an even smaller percentage of player have even made use of. And this is the kind of shit that Nader implemented into the game. These kind of invisible things that just makes the game function. Like if I enter this area, I take for granted that, you know, I'm gonna be at the start of the save. Things are gonna work as they're intended to. If I try to put on an outfit here, I cannot, because the outfit system doesn't function with the like turning into goblins and shit like that. And if I leave this area again, I'm not gonna be the goblins. You don't want stuff that, you know, you don't want variables spilling over into the main game. And I would say that almost or just about every single guest stage introduced some new issue that we did not or could not have really foreseen, I guess. Well, that's kind of besides the point, but all of them had unique challenges and like things that we had to think about in terms of, you know, the variables within the stage, avoiding stuff spilling over into the main game, making things work with our engine, making things work with our outfit system, making things work with the blue feather, and like where can you not use the blue feather, where would it break stuff, where can you not back out of a stage? Normally, you know, you back out on the first save. In some places that did not really work in a convenient way. And all this stuff, and including porting the fucking stages, which I guess I really should say something about, because one person imported all the stages, and that person is Nader. And there are over 30 of these stages, and some of them are fucking humongous and really complicated. And he put them all in the game and made them work inside of the game, and made them work with all our systems. Yeah, that is just a kind of absurd amount of work that Nader put in. And that's a kind of work that I don't think, well, certainly I had no fucking idea it was gonna be that brutal when I first had the idea of having this many guest stages. And secondly, I don't think, well, I'm pretty confident that no one else that I knew, or no one else that was working on the game was gonna do that. And if I think of the community as a whole, in terms of people who would, one, have the technical ability to do that, that right off the bat, you know, wipes out 98% of the community. This was really technically advanced shit. I did not know that Nader had that in him, but I think he learned a lot along the way, and he's like a fucking game maker god now. But yeah, so technical ability, and also you need to have fucking immeasurable amounts of patience to do all this shit. And to find anyone that has that combination of traits, I don't know if there was anyone else but Nader. And I am so incredibly lucky, or we are so incredibly lucky, that Nader was already involved with this game. And so that was able to happen because yeah, I think we would have been in a situation otherwise where we were basically everything else was done in the game, and getting this last piece of the puzzle, which is implementing all this stuff, putting all these stages that we had, importing them, we would have just been stuck at that step, and it would have taken really, really, really long, I'm talking years, to actually get that done. And something I should add to that, one reason why it takes so long, which I imagine people who have used Game Maker Studio knows about, but if you haven't, you don't know. This program, Game Maker Studio, does not really support projects of this size. So this is close to a 2 gigabyte game once everything is in. And so in its current state, if you just want to open the Game Maker and you want to fix something, we're talking, I don't know, 5-10 minutes to just open the project. And then another, minimum 10 minutes probably to do your first compile, where you actually open the exe. Let's say you open the project, you change one line of code, boom, now you have to wait 10 minutes to see if the change that you made actually works. And let's say, oh, it worked. Okay, so now we're ready to push a patch. I don't know, 30 minutes to compile a new exe, make a new version and push it up. So it's an hour to make a tiny little change and make it go live. And yeah, every time you change any bit of code or any object behavior at all, you're looking at a 5-minute compile time to test the change that you made. So it's completely absurd. You don't want to work in something like this. This program's not meant to support something of this size. And it's just incredible that Nader was able to bear it. I know it caused him a lot of stress. Although I know he also enjoyed some of it, but it was a lot for him. And in the last like 6 months ish leading up to the release, like you would see him on Game Maker Studio every single day for hours on end, just putting this stuff together. So yeah, that is, I would say, the main contribution that he had, which was making all the guest stages function in the game and like putting them in the game. But then in addition to that, he's also like the main bug fixer and debugger, even outside of that. And also, well, it's a guest stage related. But if you beat the game, there's some additional content. And yeah, again, he implemented all of that. So most of it were my ideas, and then he made them a reality. So again, that's sort of the super fortunate position that I was in, where I would have a lot of ideas. That's kind of my strength. I'm very good at coming up with ideas, I think. And then I would have like usually either V or Nader to help me implement those ideas. But at one stage of the game, someone else was helping me. Okay, I'm finding it what a smooth segue I just improvised. So after I finished designing the first 100 floors, I started drafting the location of secrets in this game. And that was a very painstaking process, because I think ideally if you're putting secrets in a game, you don't want to reverse engineer them in. You want to have that in mind as you're designing the game, that you're gonna have secrets, and probably like put them in as you go. But that's not how this was made. So I already had all the platforming in place, and then I was trying to think of where I could hide stuff within that platforming. And then I did that for a long time. I thought about it, that is. And then I compiled a list of a secret for every single stage. And then there were probably a few months where I didn't really know what the fuck to do with that, because I couldn't implement them myself. And then at some point I brought it up to Pat, and he offered to help me. So that was Pat's entry point. Pat is Patrick. That was his entry point to working on this game. So him and I went through the game stage by stage, and then we looked at the idea that I had, and then we discussed that idea, and in a lot of cases we refined that idea and like brainstormed, an improved version of it, or sometimes change it entirely. And then we thought of like sort of cool effects that would happen. So for example, here's a very cool effect for you. Boom. So this is something that Pat made, like most of these effects. And then later on we sort of added additional effects. So, well, this room was made by V. To make but we added additional effects to make some of the transitions into the areas smoother. But yeah, the initial effects and stuff were made by Pat. So me and Pat went through the game, we added all that stuff. Over the course of like a month, maybe. Took a pretty long time to do, and there were a number of floors where we really struggled to find like a satisfying place to hide something. And yeah, and this was also around the time when Pat was about to release Parabox. So it's pretty funny to me that in the midst of that stress, this was his way of blowing off steam. But yeah, that is definitely Pat's main contribution, along with this, which is, so in a game of complex stuff, I don't think there's any individual part that is as complex as this room. So you have this effect here. You have these rifts, and then it also saves your progress. And I don't know all the fucking details about it, but I know that this took a long time and it was hard to do, making this room function the way it is. And then in the middle of the room you find this cross, which was my idea, but the system was actually implemented by Kady. So that was while Kady was testing, we realized that this floor was a little too hard, or maybe a lot too hard, really. And this was a very good way of bringing that difficulty down. But I'm not gonna, make a dev commentary where I explain all the decisions. This is more about who made what and like how development worked. But yes, this game, the visual effects and stuff like that are also Pat's doing, and Pat also continued to help us with technical game maker stuff and programming gimmicks throughout development. Okay, what am I doing? Let me talk a little bit about testing. Well, or maybe a lot about testing. We'll see how much I have to say about it. So the first testers were Anuj and Nader. And again, this was before Nader got more involved in the technical side of the game. He started out he was just testing the game. And there's a lot to test with this game. Even if you're an incredibly good player, you might not really beat this game in under 100 hours. And there are several parts of the game or components to the game that we needed testing for. So obviously first everyone tested the first 100 floors, and then we did a lot of work with these, tuning stuff. And that was once that was done, Anuj and Nader were secret hunting together, basically until they found everything. And later on, Kady also did that. And then you have all the guest stages. And Nader was definitely the main tester. Anuj probably tested almost all of them. And I think across all of his save files, counting all the all the stuff that Anuj has tested, I think he spent somewhere around 200 to 300 hours testing this game. So it's this kind of running joke-ish about what did Anuj really contribute to this game, because he's not a renowned game maker. you know, what, he's just a Boshi guy in a lot of people's eyes. But he has spent so fucking much time testing, and he has found just countless, like Anuj has these fucking hawk eyes, where it's like, he will show me a screenshot of something, and he will like circle a problem area, and he'll be like, oh, I found this. And I'll look at that circled area for like 20 seconds, and then I'll just ask him like, what the fuck am I supposed to see here? And then it's just some like extremely subtle mistiling or, you know, visual inconsistency that we have to fix. Anuj has a very, very good eye for that sort of stuff. He's also very good at finding skips. I am very bad at finding skips. That's not really something that I think much about at all when I'm designing stuff. And that's why it's good to have testers like him, who will just find skips like on every single save. So yeah, I don't know. Pay some respect, put some respect on Anuj's name, because this game would have been a fucking wreck without him. There would have been like, every other play would have been soft locked somewhere had we not fixed the soft locks that he has found. And then also, don't you worry, Anuj, let's bring it up. The numbers. The fucking numbers. So again, this has to do with, or comes down to this like unique asset thing, and like the amount of the attention to detail that permeates this game. Because it's this weird thing when you make a game this ambitious and this long, even though it's like the game is already so large. We really wanted the game to just be as polished as possible, and one aspect of that is to have custom-made numbers for each floor or each tile set. And Anuj made the vast majority of all the numbers throughout the game. A few were made by Kady and myself. But yeah, so making these numbers, you have, well, this is a poor example, but you have different fonts. So most of them have different fonts from each other, and also different textures. And to do that for 100 floors is probably way more work than people realize. And one way to know how much work that is to look at other 100 floor games and see how many of them have not only different fonts, but also different textures, like custom textures for the text. Not just like, you know, you went to Cool Text or something and you used a preset. But a lot of these have just custom made fonts, or sorry, textures on the letters, and some of the floors have these, you know, special stuff. Anyways, I needed to bring that up. That was a lot of work. People are wondering, you know, did Anuj actually do anything for this game? And yes, he worked several hundred hours on this game, and he was like very involved in the creative process, as was everyone. Especially like in the final couple months, we really worked as a team. Like different people working in different areas, but convening together to discuss, you know, issues or creative decisions. Yeah, I had a similar thing with CM3, but that was also like the last 2 weeks. And prior to that, it was mostly me working by myself, and then occasionally, you know, towards the end, messaging Plasma asking if you could make something. This game was more of a team effort. It was really something we made together. And I guess I didn't really say that at the start of the video, but that's why I really wanted to make a video like this. Just to highlight that it really wasn't just me making this, because I'm so associated with the Crimson Needle series, and so many times when people refer to, like, you know, how something was made or when it was made, they'll say like, oh, when Kale made this, or what was Kale thinking? And really a lot of it, or if you know, overall, the majority of it is not really made by me, although I did have my hand in most of it. So yeah, that's something I want to mention. I think I'm almost done. I haven't really said much about Kady's contribution besides him being a tester. Kady, well, for one, he was a tester for the secrets again, which ended up meaning he had a lot of creative input on them. And I think me and Kady have a lot of similar ideas about puzzle design. So that was very helpful. You know, as was, you know, seeing Anuj and Nader do it as well, of course. But in addition to that, there's also a part towards the end of the game that I'm not actually gonna go into specifics about. It is something that has been found by the community though, so I'm not trying to throw out some misleading red herring. But that was, Kady was definitely the main contributor to that part. If you know what you probably know what I'm talking about if you've seen all the game. And he's helped with like various coding stuff too. There's so much more I could probably say, but also like when I made that last video that ended with like fucking 5-10 minutes of me just rambling because I felt like I needed to say more, but I couldn't think of what to say. So I do want to cut it here in just a moment. Just showing this part of the game, by the way, is kind of like like if you think of these 100 floors, this is definitely the part of the game that has the least effort behind it. It has a lot of care behind it though, don't get me wrong. But if you think of the game as like 3 main parts, you know, the second and the third part are definitely you know, bigger chunks of the development process. But yeah, I think I mentioned all the developers. Yeah, we all worked as a team. There are way too many things in this game for me to just like go through each and one of them and say like who made this and who made that. I think I've given a good overarching idea of it. And yeah, thank you for watching. Not planning on making more videos like this for a while, but we'll see. And yeah, goodbye.